Hi all, my name is Jenny and I'm back today to do another video. Today I'm going to be chatting through all the books that I hope to read in March of 2021. As seems to be the case every month, there are way too many books on this list, so I'm just going to jump right into things, starting with the books that are the most top priority for me and then moving into the books that I feel like I will be less and less likely to get to. I also am not going to be including any books that will roll over from February, as I'm filming this a bit early and I'm not sure which books will roll over or which books I'll be able to finish before the end of the month. So starting with the most important books that I absolutely have to finish are my two BookTube prize books that I have not started and don't plan to start during the rest of February. The first of which is The Splendid and the Vile by Eric Larson. This is a historical non-fiction book that, as the subtitle says, is a saga of Churchill, family, and defiance during the Blitz. So I believe this is primarily a biography of Winston Churchill around the World War II time, although I think I've heard that there's some kind of discussion of Winston Churchill's family and stuff during this time as well. I know that Eric Larson is quite a popular author here on BookTube, although none of his books have ever really interested me that much, but I'm hoping that means that he's a pretty engaging writer and that I can get through this one relatively quickly because it is absolutely giant. It's like 500 pages, so definitely a major priority for this month, particularly given its length. And then the other BookTube prize book that I will have to finish before March 25th, I think is the deadline for this round of the BookTube prize, is Eat the Buddha, Life and Death in a Tibetan Town by Barbara Demick. This one, as it says on the subtitle, is primarily about the relationship between China and Tibet since the Cultural Revolution in 1949. I believe there's a lot of discussion here about anti-communist activism / resistance in Tibet, and the blurb on this one says that it's illuminating a culture that has long been romanticized by Westerners as deeply spiritual and peaceful. Demick reveals what it is really like to be a Tibetan in the 21st century. So definitely sounds probably pretty cheery, not. So I'm excited to kind of give it a try. This is definitely a region of the world that I am interested in, so I was pretty excited to have this one on my BookTube prize selection. Now moving on to the 5 arcs that I'm hoping to get through this month. I have high hopes to get to all of them, but we'll see if that actually happens. The first of which I did briefly talk about in my February TBR as it may be for the month, and I've not been able to get to it, but it comes out on March 16th and is Bloom by Nicholas Skinner. This one is out from HarperCollins Children's and is a middle grade novel about a young girl named Sorrel who finds magical seeds that she's been planting throughout her school and her town, as the town is kind of full of concrete and she wants to bring nature into her small village. So I believe this one will have a lot of kind of discussion on environmentalism and nature, which is always something I'm down with. Also, it's a middle grade novel, so I think it'll be pretty quick to get through. Additionally, on March 23rd, I have The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. This is out from Orbit and it's a debut fantasy novel that includes military / political machinations in it that I've been really intrigued about. I've heard a lot of good early buzz about it, and I've also heard that it has a lot of discussions and explorations of imperialism and colonialism, which are big buzzwords for me, especially in a fantasy novel. I've also heard that it takes some inspiration from North Africa, which I think will be interesting, so overall I'm pretty excited about this one. Then on March 30th, I have an advanced copy of Liberty by Caitlin Greenidge, I believe is how you say her last name, which is out from Algonquin Books, and this is a literary historical fiction novel that is taking a lot of inspiration from the true story of the first Black female physician during the Reconstruction era of American history, and this follows, I believe, that woman's daughter who her mother wants her to become a doctor but she's not sure she wants to, and there's a lot of discussion here about being a Black woman in America during this time, as well as in Haiti. And the blurb suggests that there's a lot of discussion here about colorism, as well as the intersection of racism and sexism, so I'm super excited to get to this one as well. Then if I can get to them, I do have 2 arcs that are coming out on the 6th of April, so that first Tuesday in April. The first of which is coming out from W.W. Norton and is The 5 Wounds by Kirsten Valdez Quaid, and this takes place over the course of 1 year following a New Mexican family after a 15-year-old of the family Angel shows up pregnant to the house, and it follows a number of the different family members that they kind of deal with the ramifications of that and the new baby that enters their life. So I think there will be a lot about families and reconciliation in this one, so I'm super excited about it as well. And then also on April 6th, we have a translated work from a young German author who's been likened to Sally Rooney, and that was really all that it took for me to request this book, which is Love in Case of Emergency by Daniela Krein, I think is how you would say her name. And this one is coming out from Harper Via and is translated by Jamie Bullock. And the blurb on this one says that this is a novel about 5 women as their lives intersect, and the novel touches on friendship, love, loss, and everything in between. So definitely a book that sounds kind of up my alley. I'm excited to check it out. Then I have 3 like book club slash buddy read slash other obligation books. The first of which is Writers and Lovers by Lily King, which is my virtual book club that I do with 2 of my best friends, our book club pick for February and March. This is another one of these coming of age stories that I really love. This one takes place in the 90s and follows a young woman who has recently lost her mother, so she's dealing with the grief of that, but also kind of deciding which path she wants her life to take, and those 2 paths are kind of exemplified by 2 different men that she's in romantic relationships with. So I've heard good things about this, but I also know that Lindsay from Lindsay's Book Life really didn't like this, so I will be intrigued to see how I feel about this one. Then I was also participating in the booktube spin, which was created by Rob McDonnell. I will put a link to my booktube spin video up in the cards above, but the book that it landed on was Long Bright River by Liz Moore, which I wasn't able to get to this month, so I will hopefully read it in March. And this is a literary mystery that is set in Philadelphia that follows 2 sisters, one of whom is a cop and the other is a woman living on the streets who is addicted to opioids. And the second sister ends up going missing along with several other women who are homeless and addicted to opioids, and so the sister that's part of the police force actually ends up involved in the investigation to figure out what's happening with these women. And I think there's some discussion here about homelessness and the intersection of that and drug addiction, so I'm super excited about digging into this one as well. And then finally, in terms of buddy reads, Courtney, who I will put a link to down in the description box below, are hoping to buddy read What Were We Thinking by Carlos Lozada. This one I'll be getting out from the library, and it's basically a giant lit review of all the books that were like politically adjacent books released during the Trump presidency. I have been intrigued about a number of those books, but many of them I didn't actually want to pick up, so I'm excited to kind of hear his kind of mini reviews of them, as well as an analysis of like the broader themes that all of these books are kind of representing. So I feel like this will be a really great kind of introduction to any of those books if I do want to read them, or just a great summary so I can be a more informed human about the Trump presidency and all of the shenanigans therein. So I'm excited about that one as well. I also have 2 books to fulfill 2 reading women prompts that I picked in my February TBR, which I'll put a link to up in the cards above in case you missed it. But the 2 prompts that I picked last month were a translated book by a South American author, which for that I will be reading Isabel Allende's Island Beneath the Sea. This was originally published in Spanish in Spain, and the translator, Margaret Sayers Pedden. I'm not entirely sure if I said her name right, but this is a literary historical fiction novel that takes place in the 1700s and follows our main character, who is an enslaved woman on St. Dominique, and I believe she has a relationship with someone as part of this story, but I'm sure also just kind of her general life is kind of the main focus of this work. So excited about this one, although it is a bit of a longer book. Then the second prompt that I picked was a book with a biracial protagonist, and for that I'll be reading You Had Me At Ola by Alexis Daria. This is a contemporary romance that follows our 2 main leads, who are leads on a TV show and then end up falling for each other in real life, and our main female lead is half Puerto Rican and half Filipino, so excited about this one as well. And then as always, I pick my 2 prompts for next month, so I'll be picking April's prompts right now, which is crazy to think that like the month after this one will be April. That is just absolute insanity. But let's just see what those 2 books or 2 prompts will be when filled out. So my first prompt, we'll go with this one, is by a neurodivergent author. Oh, this is exciting because I actually just got for my birthday Take a Hint Danny Brown, which is by Telly Hibbert, who is on the autism spectrum, so super excited about that. We'll be reading that next month, I guess. And then the other one that I will pick is this one, a book about incarceration. So for that I believe I was going to read Sing Unburied Sing, so I'll be reading that in April as well. Okay, and then last but not least, I also like to pick 2 books that have been sitting on my TBR since before 2020. It'll be over a year now because I put a couple books in here that I got in like January and February of 2020, just because they'd been sitting on my TBR for quite a long time. In the past 2 months, in January and February, I've only successfully read one of the 2 that I've picked, but I am hoping to eventually do a catch-up probably in June or potentially even in April, because there's a fair amount of books from my January and February TBRs that I've not finished, but that is my plan. I still like to pick 2 anyway. So I have one right here. Let's see. Oh, just kidding. This is 2. We'll put this one away. Okay, so the first one I picked is The Come Down. I'll go get these in a sec. And then the second one is this one. Ooh, A Garden A Garden of Marbles. Okay, so the first one is The Come Down by Rebecca Frumkin. This one is a contemporary novel slash literary fiction novel that I think this is about two different families that become connected potentially because they're both involved in this crime, and we follow their families for like several decades or something. I've heard not a ton about this one, to be perfectly honest, but the author is actually a alumna of my alma mater as well, which kind of made me excited to check this one out. So yeah, I will tell you what I think of it. But Carmen Machado blamed it on the back, so it probably is pretty good. Okay, so there's The Come Down. And then the other one is a nonfiction book, and that's A Garden of Marvels by Ruth Kassinger. The subtitle on this one is How We Discovered That Flowers Have Sex, Leaves Eat Air, and Other Secrets of Plants. And my mom has read this one and thoroughly enjoyed it. She keeps telling me that I need to read it, so now will finally be my chance, hopefully. And I definitely know a fair amount about botany and like plant ecology, but I'm always intrigued to learn more, so excited about this one as well. And those are all of the many books that I have on my March TBR. If you have read any of these books and would recommend them or not recommend them, do let me know down in the comment section below. Additionally, if you are new to my channel, I'd love to have you stick around and subscribe, and I will talk to you next time. Bye!